no, I'm overdue. I'm really in a stew. No time to say goodbye. Hello, I'm late.
My, what a peculiar place to have a party. You know, Dinah, we really shouldn't be doing this. After all, we haven't been invited, and curiosity often leads to trouble. Goodbye, Dinah. Goodbye.
Whoa! Where am I? What is this place? Sorry, Wonderland is not in my council area. Need to travel safe. You're watching BookTube with Simon and Amy, the bizarre edition. And I know what you're thinking. You've seen some bizarre things here before. Well, if you think that was bizarre, buckle up, mate. You haven't seen anything yet. What you're about to see cannot be unseen. Anyway, I am first of all trying not to get hair on the microphone, and second of all, where is the microphone? There. Second of all, the reason I am dressed as Alice of the Wonderlands is because of Kieran of KD Books and Ange of Ange with an E. And you may be Ange with an E, but you are Ange without a clue, because you keep suggesting books to me that are absolutely terrible. Today we're going to be discussing the Infernal what's it called? Today we're going to be discussing The Infernal Desire Machines of Dr. Hoffman by Angela Carter, as recommended by the aforementioned people, who are linked below, as you probably predicted. Now, this book is like a parallel universe, which is the reason why I am doing my very best to disorientate you by being Alice of Alice in Wonderland behind a jamboree of insanity. In front of a jamboree of insanity. I can't even get my propositions correct. So, this book, in a nutshell, it's set in a world. We've got an unnamed country. We're not told what country it's in. But here's the problem. The problem is you have Dr. Hoffman running the show. And Dr. Hoffman has decided to basically run an extended experiment where he's taken this part of the world and he's made it impossible to discern reality. So what is real and true today ceases to be real and true tomorrow. Time doesn't work. Mirrors don't work. If you look at a mirror, you don't see reality. Mirrors are thus banned. Everything is just nonsensical. He is trying to corrupt society by making sure that nobody has any idea of what the truth actually is anymore. So birds are flying from the sky and then suddenly will hit a wall that wasn't there before and just fall dead, or something like that. There are ghosts wandering about getting pregnant, so we're just surrounded by ghost babies. Yes, disturbing. And as you're wondering about your everyday life, you can just find yourself sprayed with the random blood of somebody because something unexpected happened to them. That actually went up my nose. Okay, actually this is really sore because it is properly jammed up my nose. Oh, ouch. And so, we're stuck in this world where all this horrible stuff is happening all the time. And there seems to be no particular way to stop it. There is enforcement police who try to prevent people from doing anything that aids the disinformation. But Dr. Hoffman keeps doing stuff that just makes it impossible to overcome him. You need a permit to even leave the town. It's horrific and horrendous and terrible. However, all is not lost, because Diserido or something ridiculous like that is tasked to go and kill Dr. Hoffman, and he has to choose between an untrue life with aspects that he likes and a real reality that has maybe got features that he doesn't particularly like, but is nevertheless real. And so he's given a permit to leave and start on his mission. I can't see anymore. It's okay. We'll carry on. So he goes on his mission. He's given a permit to leave town and start his mission to save the world. However, there are a lot of distractions along the way. Of course, as any noble mission involves things disrupting the plan. His mission is disrupted by bad people, by conspiracy, by Dr. Hoffman's spies trying to get him, and the fact that they're all at it like rabbits. Double joke. Alice in Wonderland plus the at it like rabbits joke. There's a lot of that, and it's not very fun to read. I mean, let's put it this way: if an alien arrived on planet Earth and their primary source of education about how the species was progenited was from this book, they would report back to Mars HQ. I've no idea how the species has gone on for so long, because this sounds horrendous. And it does sound horrendous. The first introduction we get to scenes of an adult nature, and I say adult nature, not that it always involves adults, by the way, but of an adult nature, is the machines, the famous machines of desire, which, frankly, the only thing that they made me desire was to unread it, to actually reach into my brain and scrape the words I'd just seen right out of my eyeballs before they made it to my brain. As if there was some justice in the world, I would actually be able to, in the same way that if a pigeon flies into your hallway, you think if you shut the living room door, you can get the pigeon back out before it craps on your mantelpiece. Similar, I want to try and pluck out the eyeball, squash it, except I'm going to be blind in one eye, all because it will spare me from getting the word from eye to brain and having to think about these images. But unfortunately, I won't have thought of this until the word has hit my brain, so it's impossible. Or is it? That's more of a Discworld question. Coming soon. But back at the point. This is terrible. So the machines do not, for example, it is not a Michelangelo sculpture of beauty. It's not a Venus of desire that you look at. It's not, it doesn't explain to us why Margot Robbie looks so good in a bikini. No, it is purely yucky. It is bodily fluids and hairy bits and carnal stuff being done by puppets. It's like Team America gone wrong. It's just horrendous stuff. But this, believe it or not, my fellow compatriots, through the literary maze of horrors, is probably the least disturbing section of all, because of all of the stuff that happens, of all of the rumpy-pumpy that progresses throughout the book. I don't think any of it is actually consensual, because people are either too young to consent, too asleep to consent, or too being pinned down by lots of people and forced to accept things in places where they would not choose to have them. and this becomes a bit of a theme. And let's not talk about child abuse here as if it's something that we can josh about. It's not a joshy topic. So let's talk about something else as a metaphor instead. Let's talk about chocolate. So imagine there's a rule that says you're only allowed to eat chocolate after it has sat on that shelf for, say, 16, 18 years. Just pretend that's the rule. And then you spot somebody's chocolate which hasn't been there for quite as long as it should have been, and you know that really you're not supposed to touch it. Now, Desiderio, our protagonist, the guy you're supposed to like, has taken a chocolate before its time. We're going to gloss over entirely the fact that this chocolate was asleep, because that is another matter, but it's happened. And it seems a bit inappropriate because he is a very, very old bit of chocolate, and this is quite a young bit of chocolate, but maybe on the borderline. So, you know, if we can maybe just overlook the fact it was a wee bit creepy and overlook the fact she was asleep, maybe we can be okay with that. And then, I mean, spoilers, etc. But it comes to pass that he finds himself caught with the body of the chocolate, the dead body of the chocolate. Now, the authorities have come to the conclusion that if you ate the chocolate that you weren't supposed to eat, and you happen to be surrounded by the dead chocolate, maybe you also killed the chocolate, which is not it's not an absurd conclusion to jump to. He, knowing that he didn't kill the chocolate, thinks they've killed the chocolate to fit me up for it, and I don't want to be done for killing the chocolate. So anyway, it now transpires that the chocolate was not quite so borderline as he thought it was. The chocolate was actually a fair bit badder. Actually, what he did was worse than just nicking one tiny Malteser out of the box. So much worse. And so he does the only reasonable thing, and he does a runner, which is fine. That I would probably do the same. So he does a runner, and then he runs away onto a boat. And now let me remind you just for 1 minute of what we've already learned. We have learned that he has thought he's eaten a Malteser while it was asleep, and actually he's scoffed quite a big bar of chocolate, as it turns out. But he's doing this on the middle of his mission because he's on his way to tackle evil Dr. Hoffman, because he is in love with his daughter. Now, unlike his previous conquest, Dr. Hoffman's daughter is of age. She's above the age of consent, and so we're actually talking not about a little bit of chocolate, something much more mature. What's the mature snack that could replace a chocolate? A biscuit. It's a biscuit. It's like a biscuit. He wants the biscuit, but let's be clear, we're not just talking about any old biscuit, we're talking about a luxury biscuit, maybe covered in chocolate with caramel. This is what it's all about. This is what we want. And so having escaped from the Malteser munching incident, he runs away to not be accused of being a man who eats Maltesers without permission, and on his way to enjoy eternal happiness with a luxury biscuit, he finds himself aboard the boat, whereupon the next chocolate that he decides to eat happens to be very young. I mean, let's face it, 9 years old. We have gone from supposedly feeling sorry for this guy for the transgression with the sleeping Malteser to now really full on unacceptable behaviour with something you cannot mistake for a Malteser. This is the kahunas. You see my point? So I remind you again, this is the protagonist. This is the guy we're supposed to like. This is now the second person under the legal age that he has been inappropriate with. And just to rub it in, while he's enjoying the chocolate cake, he's also having some fun with the chocolate cake's grandmother. So, as it turns out, he runs away from this lot as well because he thinks they're going to eat him. Really, actually, we're no longer in metaphorical Malteser eating, we are in the literal sense of he thinks he's going to be cooked and consumed by this cannibalistic tribe in the aftermath of the chocolate cake incident. So he goes on the run again. And now I have to stress that he's supposed to be on a very urgent mission. A very urgent mission that has 2 primary drivers. 1, to liberate his whole country. 2, the chocolate biscuit. Of the daughter of Dr. Hoffman. He doesn't appear to really be intrinsically or extrinsically driven by these goals. He ran away from the mayor's house because of the Malteser that wasn't a Malteser, who was definitely asleep and is now dead, and then he was living life quite happy, just chilling out on this barge with cannibalistic, incestuous paedophiles who carry around wet fish for dolls, and he only runs away from them because he thinks they're going to eat him. So he's really not very committed to this mission. Then he finds himself in a travelling circus, and you think, well, okay, fair enough, you know, no more incidents with chocolate here. Well, I mean, that's correct. There aren't. Everybody that he does anything with there is of age. Unfortunately, they do other things, such as juggle with their own limbs, having cut them off, which is not normal. And just to really make it all the more bizarre, he gets a taste of his own medicine because, having been inappropriate with the Malteser and then with the chocolate cake who had the wet fish, the fish was really a fish, the chocolate cake was a child, and he's now in the travelling circus, and so what they do is all of these crazy acrobats who juggle their own limbs after hacking them off and doing all sorts of stuff and just being nuts, they decide to collectively, as a group, force him into this experience of being a Malteser cake, if you get my drift. You know, they gang rape him. They gang rape him. But don't worry, because chocolate biscuit saves the day, and off they go. And then, of course, it's her turn to be gang raped, because you can't be a character in this book that's got a serious storyline unless you're also gang raped. But she can't just be gang raped by self-mutilating murderous acrobats. No! Then we get into the most erotic part of the book altogether. The centaur porn. Yes, centaurs who commune with God by doing a poo. Honestly, you couldn't make this stuff up. Well, Alice Carter did make it up, but I don't know how. They think a spiritual experience is doing a poo, and then they decide to gang rape Alice, Dr. Hoffman's daughter. I mean, of all the things that could ever have been fun to read about, centaur rape porn is probably about as close to the bottom of the list as the bottom of the list can be. It is practically off the list. You have fallen off the page and landed in a heap that used to be the page. Did you ever watch Lion Witch in the Wardrobe and think, take me Tumnus, even while I say no? But now he is focused, laser-like, on his end goal, now that he is with Albertina and she is full of centaur spunk, and they decide to move forward into the mission. But of course, this is not a spoiler, because as we find out at the very beginning of the book, Albertina is not a luxury biscuit, but an evil biscuit, and as everybody knows, an evil digestive is a hobnob. I'm a bitch, I'm a lover, I'm a child, I'm a mother. And he tells us at the very beginning of the book that the fate he inflicts on Albertina, his beloved biscuit, is gruesome. I'm a sinner, I'm a saint. I do not feel ashamed. Oh, crumbs. Quite frankly, the entire book is mad as a hatter. Yes, the whole book is absolutely crackers. There's no other word for it. And now for the serious critique. You may have picked up on by now it's a very bizarre book. It's very bizarre. There's no denying that. But while it is obviously deliberately surrealist literature, it's rubbish. Because you just... my first big problem with the book is you don't really get to associate yourself very much with Disaronno, or whatever he's called. I feel like Carter is deliberately using a dissociative way of telling the story, and you're almost one step removed all the time. I mean, for a start, he is recounting the story in his old age, so automatically the imperative that he might die at any point is removed, which isn't really that big of a deal because, let's face it, the hero very rarely dies mid-book, so the threat is usually quite artificial anyway. But the fact that he is telling this story in hindsight rather than you sort of going through it in real time creates that bit of distance. And there's a few times when he says, I don't really remember the detail of this, or I don't really remember what happened somewhere else, and so you're kind of automatically one step removed because it's his recollections in his dotage that you are getting. And then even when he does tell the story, you're not really sucked in, and it's not as if you are fully immersed. There is a barrier and a wall between his experience and what you're getting to see. So you don't even get his limited omniscience. You get this sort of weird semi-omniscience, which is, I don't know, semniscience, and I find it very difficult to connect with him as a character and to really invest in what's going on. Plus, I mean, I made kind of light of it earlier, but the fact that one of the first things he does on a mission is rape a child, it becomes quite difficult to really buy into him. I think the concept of Dr. Hoffman and the way that he is bending reality and making it all very confusing is really well explained at the start of the book, and you can understand exactly how disorientating and weird and bizarre it would be to live like that, but it's not actually really used very much after that. You're just surrounded by genuinely weird people doing genuinely weird, inexplicable stuff, but so much of Dr. Hoffman's evilness is absent from the book. So he's a very remote, far-off villain who doesn't really appear to be particularly involved in a lot of what is going on for much of the book. It just feels like a sort of distant plot creation of a villain that will set him off. But like I said, his motivation and impetus is not like Frodo is going through all of these different ordeals to get to Mordor because he knows no matter what weird and wonderful creatures he meets, he's got to destroy the ring. He's just like not even a pinball. It's not even as fast as a pinball. He just finds himself in a situation and he sticks about until it gets unbearable and then goes to another situation, and then eventually he just happens to end up ready to kill Dr. Hoffman. So it feels very much to me like Alice Carter had all of these ideas that she thought all of these ideas would make an awesome book, but then rather than make a cohesive story with characters that you can buy into, she just dumped all of these plot points in it, and it's trying far too hard to make a point and to do something. I'm not sure what it's trying to do, but it's very clearly trying to do something. It's trying to tell us something. It's trying to be something profound, and it's just not being. And if she'd actually written a story that was cohesive and written characters that you could care about, then maybe she would be able to more effectively communicate whatever her message is. But as it stands, it's a hot mess. I'm reading the book in 2021, where we are in the age of misinformation and disinformation, and what is real and what is fact and what is just an invention of the media or of politicians. It should be very prescient, and it actually isn't. So I think a lot of what she wanted to communicate just didn't really cut through the bizarre construct that she'd made, and the message is lost. So I have an eclectic mix of cast. As Desiderio. As Desiderio, I would cast Antonio Banderas, largely because his name also ends in an O. So I just thought of a sort of Antonio Banderas looking guy cutting through the, you know, woods, whatever. As Dr. Hoffman, I can't remember, has he got a real name? I call him Mr. Moustaches. The evil Dr. Hamburger guy from the Sonic games is who I imagine to be Dr. Hoffman. I mean, it's spelled Reddy, Carol McReady. I don't know if it's Carol McReady is the pronunciation. Carol McReady. I was cast as the housekeeper in the mayor's house. And I really, do you know, I pictured her so strongly when I was reading the character, but I couldn't for the life of me remember who she was. I was like, who is this woman? And does that ever happen to you? And then I was trying to figure out who she was and where I'd seen her before and what I'd seen her in and anything that would let me look her up. And I finally remembered that she plays Alice Tinker's mum in The Vicar of Dibley, going, did you? Did you? Oh, you did you? What I think ecstasy's like. I can't explain it any other way. I mean, I'm struggling to summarise this book in 500 words because it is just so bizarre. But yeah, it's what I think ecstasy is like. It is. Shall we? Yeah, I would give it 2 stars. I would not recommend it. I would not read it again. I didn't enjoy it. I thought it was disturbing. I thought it was weird. I thought it was bizarre. I don't know what the point of it is. Ange with an E. Kieran of KD Books, you are henceforth banned from recommending any more books to me. Again, I'm not doing it. I can't keep reading this stuff. I want to enjoy reading again. Okay? I want to read a book I'll actually enjoy. Thank you. Now, I know quite a lot of you have read it because I think it was Kieran's book club pick, so please share your thoughts below if you've read it. Tell me what you think. If you haven't read it, then let me know if you think you will. If you think you'll give it a whirl. I'll be back soon. Bon voyage. What about you? What do you want to be when you grow up, Simon? An astronaut? A barrister? No, I want to be dressed as a bunny on the internet when I'm in my 30s while I'm trying to avoid getting the plague. I think I should maybe think about getting some therapy.